Hey everybody, welcome back to Build It with Tim, where I take community suggestions for apps and modules and I build it live on the fly. Today's episode is going to be building a time tracking module. In this module, we are going to be giving our users the ability to track time for different projects or jobs, whatever that may be in your specific app. But we're going to do this using the list component, action links, and display rules. Okay, so before we jump in here, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what this is going to look like when we're done, and then we'll get started. So the finished app is going to look like this. We're going to have a list of jobs. We're going to have a form to add new jobs. We're going to have the ability to start tracking our time, stop tracking our time, complete our job, and on the details, be able to see the time that was spent on the job, who it was completed by, when it was completed, and the total time spent for the entire job. All right, so let's get started here. We're in a blank app right now, but I could see I did add a couple users here just to expedite this a little bit. So I'm going to leave these users here, start adding some tables. So for time tracking, we're probably going to want to track, I mean, you can track it on anything if it was anything actionable. So if it was a job or a task or a project, um, it can really be anything. And here I'm just gonna call this jobs. We're gonna keep it simple, and we're just gonna create a table for jobs. So we're gonna have a job name. Let's also add a field for job description. We want to know if the job has been started, if it is in progress, if it's been stopped, when it's complete. So we're going to add a couple options here for our select field. So we're going to call this job status. And this may change. I'm kind of thinking about this as we go. So it's going to have to do, how about started, stopped, and complete. We'll do those four for now. So started, stopped, and complete. Those look like good colors to use. Okay. And how about we'll do a date too for completed on. Okay, so this is going to be the basis of our data structure right now. So we have the job name, job description, a select field in order to manage the different steps that the job goes through, and then we're going to have a date for when it was completed. Okay, so I'm definitely going to keep adding on to this data structure, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and build a page because I want to get our list component up and running and start to shape that out. So we'll jump over to the page builder and I'll add a page. So we'll call this jobs, that's fine. It can be in our regular layout. We'll add it to the menu and we're going to choose list component and the jobs table. All right, so a couple things I want to change right off the bat with the list component is I'm going to go to layouts and I'm going to change this. We're going to keep it one column and the default is actually fine for now. I don't have any images to use for a cover photo. That should be fine. Although we could, well, no, we'll just leave it as default for now. Okay, so let's see. Let's add our fields. So we have job name, job description, job status, completed on. That's okay. All right. So now how I'm envisioning this is that we're going to have two columns on each list row. So, right, we have a row here for every single record that's going to be shown in the list component. And I want this to be split into two columns. So on the left side is going to be all of our information. Whoops. And on the right side is going to be all of our buttons that are going to start time tracking, end the tracking, so on and so forth. So we're going to add a couple action links here. I know we at least are going to need a start and a stop button. So let's do that. Start, this one can be start, this one can be stop. And let's do another one for complete. All right, so we'll call this one start, stop, and complete. And before we preview the page, we'll add another page called Add Job. And this is just going to be a form so that we can put jobs into our page. Okay, so we don't need completed on because that's going to happen later. And job status, let's update that with a form rule. So we're going to go into rules, record rules, and when a new job is submitted, we're going to update this record and set the job status to a custom value of to do. And we'll call this build a simple app. Build an app to track time. How about that? All right, so we'll save that. And then if we go to our jobs page, you're going to see we have this list component. So we have one record here so far. And here are our action links. And I know right away that there's things that I want to change with the list component. So in the builder, we're going to go to the jobs page that we set up, and I'm going to start editing this list component. So number one, we need to add some color here. And I'm also going to hide the column titles for the buttons, or for the links, sorry. So I'm going to change these to buttons. In the Format tab, we're going to change the link type to button. And start, how about we'll change the success, which is usually like a greenish color. Stop can be danger, which is red. And complete, we can leave as the primary color. Okay, so now that we have these as buttons, the link text is going to show as start, but also this has a field title of start as well. So I'm going to go back through here and I'm going to hide the column titles for each of our action link buttons. All right, so let's see what we've got so far. Nice, much better. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to start building out our actions so that when we click start, the job status updates to started, stop goes to stopped, and complete goes to complete. And additionally, we only want to show the buttons for irrelevant status. So when the status is to do, we want to show start only. We don't need to see stop and we don't need to see complete. When the job status is started, we only need to see stop. When the job status is stopped, we should be able to restart it or complete it. And when the job status is complete, then we're done. We don't need to see any of them. So we're going to jump back to the builder now and start building out our action rules and our display rules. So we're going to go into our list component here, and we're going to start to add the action rules and the display rules. So the action rules and display rules are going to be specific to each individual field here, each individual action link. So we'll start with the first one and add our action rule. So this is the start button, which means we want to update this record and set the job status to a custom value of started. The stop button, we're going to update it and set the job status to stopped, and then we'll do the same thing for complete, except we'll set it to complete. Okay, so this means if we take a step back and think about this whole process now, a new record gets created. It's visible in the list component. The job status is going to be to do because that gets set from the form rule where we add a new job. Okay, then a user would click start and the job status would update to started. Click stop, it updates to stopped. Click complete, it updates to complete. So that pushes the job record from the beginning status all the way through the end status being complete. Okay, so the next thing is going to be our display rules. And again, this is going to be set on each individual field. So we'll add the display rule to the start button. And the way that the display rules are going to work is we're going to set a condition. So we're going to define when the job status is or is not something. We're going to choose to hide the values. So we're going to choose hide value and hide text value. And in the case of the start button, we only want it to be visible when the job status is started or complete. So we're actually going to change this to is not, and we're going to say it's not to do, and job status is not stopped. Okay, for the stop button, it's going to be if the job status is not started, then hide it, hide the whole button and the value. And complete will be, let's see, we'll do what job status is not stopped. And hide this. Okay, so let's take a look at this now and see if we've got that correct here. Okay. All right, so our job status is to do, and only the start button is visible. We're going to click start. You can see the job status updates and only stop is visible now. We click stop, job status updates correctly, and start and complete are visible. And the reason I did this is that I've wanted to give the user the opportunity to like add more time or start on the job again before they actually complete it. Because when we complete it, the buttons are gone. And I just noticed something else we can do with the action rules as well. So I think we're doing good so far. So I'm going to jump back to the builder, and I want to do something with this completed on date field here. So when the job is actually completed, we're going to add an additional rule here, and we're going to update. Actually, we can do it in the same rule. So when the button is pressed, we're going to update the job status to complete, and we're going to set completed on to the current date. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do is I only need to show completed on when it actually has a value. So let's see, if I move it, I could move it up here. I'll just leave it here for now. It's fine. And we'll go into our options and we'll choose the option where it says hide empty fields. We're going to turn that on. Okay, now what that looks like now is, well, it's empty, so it's gone. So let's add a new one. Test job description. Okay, so here we have a new job. We'll click start, stop, and complete. Okay, so you can see now completed on is visible and the job status is marked as complete and our buttons are now gone. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this so far. I think it's a great start, but I want to just take a moment and expand on it a little bit, okay? Because right now we know the job status, we know what job it's for, we know when it was completed, but we don't know who completed it, and we don't know, we don't know who completed it, and we don't know how much time they spent on it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the data builder and start to build out some additional tables and some additional fields to track those things. Okay, so the first thing that we can do is we can add another field in the jobs table, and we can make this a connection to a user, and we can say completed by. Back on the page builder here, we're going to go to our action link that completes the job, and we're going to set an additional action to this rule, and we're going to say set completed by to the logged in user. So as the user is logged into the application and they are starting, stopping, and completing jobs, when they press complete, Tadabase will grab that logged in user value and set it to completed by. Okay, so the data builder now. Let's jump back to the data builder, and we want to build a way to actually track the time that was spent on each job. So to do that, we're going to add another table, and we'll call this time tracking. And here, we're going to have a connection to the job. We can get rid of this default time tracking name field. We're going to have a date time field. So this is going to be start. And we're going to add another one that's going to be end date time. And let's start with that. Okay, so the reason that I did a separate table for time tracking is this. So let's say we did our time tracking on the job record itself. So if you remember from the actual live app, the way this is set up and the way it's currently working is that we've given the user the ability to press start and stop multiple times. So if we had a start date field here, an end date field here, we would have to constantly update the start and stop, and we would lose the history of when they first started it and when they last stopped it. Okay, but by adding a new table, we're going to use the action links to insert connected records into this table. So we'll have a record of every single time they pressed start, every single time they pressed stop. Okay, so then what we can do is in the jobs table is we can add an equation field to sum the values of all of the time that they spent on the job. Okay, so in the page builder, we're going to add some additional actions to our buttons, and we only need to apply these actions to the start and the stop. So we're going to go to the start one, and in this case, we're going to add a entirely new rule. So we're going to choose add action rule. And rather than update record, we're going to choose insert a connected record. And this connected record is going to go into the time tracking table. And we're going to set the start date to the current date and time. And then when we press stop, we are going to do something slightly different. We're going to update the connected records in time tracking, and we're going to set the end date to current date and time. So what this means, if we look at the data builder, what this means is that for every job that we have, right, we have all our job fields, and we had our action links on the page builder. That now the action links we're going to insert, the start button was going to insert a new connected record into this table. So it's going to be connected to the job, and it's going to set the start date time to the current date and time. Now the stop button is going to update the connected record. So that means it's going to go find the record that the start button created, and then it's going to set the end time. Now, if the user presses the start button again, it's going to create a new record, okay, with a start date time. And then again, the stop button is going to update that connected record. So for every time you start it, we have a new record. Every time you stop it, it's going to update that record. And that way you'll have a full set of connected records, each one connected to a job and with its own start and end date. Okay, so now to calculate those, what we're going to do is we're going to add a field here, and we're going to go to the equation tab, and we're going to choose date formula. So this is going to be, let's call it like time spent, and we're going to do a little trick here to output all of this data. So this is going to be time spent, and we'll call this time spent date formula. Okay, so the date formula can output as hours, and we're going to choose for our formula, we're going to do the end date minus the start date. Okay, and then we're going to add a basic formula, and this is going to be time spent in minutes. Okay, so when we add a field to the basic formula, you can see we can pull the value from the date formula, and we have options for seconds, minutes, hours, whatever we need. So we could do in hours, but in this case, I'll just choose minutes. I guess that can be up to you. Okay, and then on our jobs table, one more thing that we need to do to finalize this whole calculation is add a complex formula. And our complex formulas are count, max, min, average, and sum. In this case, we're going to choose sum. We want to call this total time. And we're going to reach into the connected time tracking table, and we're going to sum all of the connected records, time tracking records, and we're going to sum the time spent in minutes field. Okay, so back to the page builder, and we'll give this a try. All right, so you can see I've reset these jobs. I deleted our test jobs. I'm going to hit start. And now I'm going to pause the video for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes and come back to this and hit stop. Okay, so I had a nice little coffee break here, and let's go ahead and click our stop button. All right, and flip back to the data builder and see what that all looks like. So we'll go check our records. Okay, so here you can see we've inserted a new connected record. It has the start date, the end date, our time spent in hours, and our time spent in minutes. And if we go up to the job, you can see the total time is now counting the total minutes. Okay, so again, we'll go back to the page builder. We'll add a couple more records here, and then we'll wrap up. So I added some more records from the live app. Sorry, I didn't record that part, but I added up a whole bunch of new records. And you can see we have now 3 separate records. They're all connected to the same job. They all have their own individual start and stop time, their own individual total time calculations. But if we go look at the actual job that everything's connected to, we have a grand total of all of the connected records. Okay, so just to make that a little bit more clear for the front end too, we're just going to quickly add let's add a details, details button, sorry. So we'll put this over here. Links, record details page. We'll make this a button. And on the job details, we will show a table of all of the connected time tracking records. And it looks like this. So we have our detail. And here we go. Here's all of the connected time tracking records, our total time that was spent. You can see I'm logged in now. So if I actually go back to this job and I hit complete, we have everything is filled out now. So completed by Mike, completed on 5/25, and here's all of our time tracking records. Okay, so I think that just about does it for this week's episode of Build It with Tim. Again, we learned how to build all this. I guess just to quickly kind of recap some of the features that we use. We use the list component. We used action links and display rules. And we also got a little taste of some equations and formulas in order to track our total time. Okay, if anybody has any questions, please leave me a comment. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Thanks.